Hey, shalom, shalom,
Shalom.
shalom, makam, which is peace unto you all. Hayawam tawabla atam, which is good day unto you all. Nachna wahai bar shala. Hey, we the Hebrew Israelites coming to you week in and week out through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, to preach to you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, West Indians, Haitians, and Israelite foreigners. Nachamatam, Kaya, Kamalakat Hashemayim, Kwara, repent ye for the kingdom of heaven is at hand, first and foremost. Before we get started, we're going to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rocha, Wadashwa, double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone that taught us his truth and rule well, and much respect to you bros out there pushing his truth with all righteousness and sincerity. Shalom, shalom. All right, so another edition of AhlapBayath, which is the alphabet. All right, last time we went over Ka to La. All right, and we're moving on to Ma, which Ma represents Mayam. All right, Mayam goes into the word for water. All right, and reason being is because Ma, you got two Ma's in the word for water, which is Mayam. You got the Ma that's representative of the waters above the firmament. All right, and then also you have the Ma that's the waters on the actual earth surface, and then you got the Yah, which essentially serves as the firmament. All right. So could we start with Genesis, the first chapter?
Khan. Want me to just start from the top?
We start at verse 5.
Khan. So this is Genesis 1 and verse 5. It reads, and the Elohim called the light day, and the darkness they called night, and the evening and the morning were the first day.
Mm-hmm.
And the Elohim said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters.
All right, so going back to the point, it says, and the power said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. So I'm gonna draw a quick picture real fast. And could you also get Psalms 148 and verse 4? And we'll come back to that.
This is the book of Psalms 148 and verse 4. It says, praise him, ye heavens of heavens, and ye waters that be above the heavens.
So showing that, it's actual waters, above the heavens. You got the waters above the heavens, all right, and then you got the waters beneath the firmament, so in the actual creation, all right, going back to we can go back to Genesis 1 and verse 5.
Mm-hmm.
So in the actual creation, it says, and the power said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters. So this is how it would be right here. Can you see it, bro?
Let me see it. Salakia. Oh yeah, I see it.
All right, so it said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters. This is the word for firmament, Raqayi. All right, Raqayi. The Ra goes into the highest part on the horizon. The highest part on the horizon that the eye can see. Pretty much when you break this word down. All right, but this is where the two meet. All right, so you got the waters above the heavens. You got the waters above the firmament. All right, you got the waters on the earth's surface, and this is where the two meet right here. But this is the word water comprised together, Mayam, because again you got the waters on the planet Earth, you got the firmament, all right, and then you got the waters in the heavens or above the firmament.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna read it again. Genesis 1 and verse 6. It says, and the power said, let there be a firmament, Raqayi, in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters in the spiritual. Because what do you do with your hands? You part things, you divide things. Like if you had some bread, when you say, yeah, we about to break bread, you pretty much you eating together. It has a manifold meaning, you see, but you ultimately going back to the point of that you use your hands to break things. Break it, divide it, to part it. That's why it says, and let it divide the waters from the waters. And that's why, again, the two meet at that specific point right here. where it has the mayam and the Raqayi, they meet where it has the letter ya, because your hand is used to part things.
Mm-hmm.
So it says, and the powers made the firmament, Raqayi, and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so. So pretty much going into the creation of water. All right, and then also the pretty much or going into the word for water, all right, which is
Mm-hmm.
a creation, and then also the firmament. But Ma, again, it goes. Could you go back to the letter on the chart?
Khan, may I get something real quick, just to back up your point?
Yeah, you got it.
Because you mentioned how there's waters in the heavens and also waters under the firmament, under the firmament. But there's something I wanted to get. It's in the book of it's in the book of Genesis, but it's in the story of Noah. This is Genesis 7 and verse 11. It says, "In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the second month, in the 17th day of the month, the same day were all the fountains of the great deep broken up, and the windows of heaven were opened." So just proving that point that you mentioned, how there's waters in the heavens and there's waters above the firmament and there's waters under the firmament.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right,
that's how the world was flooded during the time of Noah.
right. From there, we got Psalms 148 and verse 4. Could you also get could you go back to the chart?
Khan.
Because it says which that should be a ma at the end. It says mayan, which that's a typo. It should say mayam. All right. And what we notice about the how the letter, the symbol for ma is essentially created. All right, it has three ridges, and it ends off on the left side, and that's because if the Lord wanted to make more waves, he would, that's essentially
Mm-hmm.
up to the will of the Lord, but in this specific diagram, it has 3 points, and that's because you got three forms of water. All right, just to go into that, let's get Psalms 147, and we'll go to verse 16 and 17, and I'll get Job 36, 27 to 28.
Khan. This is Psalms 147 and verse 16. It says, "He giveth snow like wool, he scattereth the hoarfrost like ashes."
And snow is comparable to wool,
Mm-hmm. Verse 17, "He casteth forth his ice like morsels. Who can stand before his cold?"
So you got ice. That's a solid,
Mm-hmm. Continue on.
hmm
Verse 18, it says, "He sendeth out his word and melteth them. He causeth his wind to blow and the waters flow."
right. In which the word is ultimately the word is multifaceted. It has multiple similitudes. The word is likened unto a fire. The word is likened unto water. The
Mm-hmm.
word is likened unto a two-edged sword. All right, but we're going to specifically the water. You see, and water has three states. Going back to how that letter looked, it had three ridges. You got a
Mm-hmm.
solid, you got a liquid, and you got a gas. All right. So it says he casted forth his ice. Psalms 147 and 17. He casteth forth his ice like morsels. Who can stand before his cold? He sendeth out his word and melted them, pursuant to Jeremiah 5 and 14. I'm going to get that real fast. This is Jeremiah chapter 5, and we'll get verse 14. And it says, "Wherefore thus saith the Lord of hosts, because ye speak this word, behold, I will make my words in thy mouth fire, and this people wood, and it shall devour them." So again, the word is multifaceted. All right, it has multiple similitudes. All right, and a similitude essentially is something that is a comparison or something that's similar to something else. So could we go back to that Psalms?
Con.
Psalms 147 and where we at 18. It says, "He sendeth out his word and melted them," because the word is, compared unto fire. It says it melted them. He causeth his wind to blow, and the waters flow. So the waters again is another similar to for this word. The word flows out. The scriptures say this truth has went out pursuant to Romans the 10th chapter. All right, Isaiah 6 the 62nd chapter.
Mm-hmm.
Habakkuk the 2nd chapter. This word is going out and it's being made plain upon tables. That's why it says verse 19. It says he sheweth his word unto Jacob, his statutes and his judgments unto Israel. He hath not dealt so with any nation, and as for his judgments, they have not known them. Praise ye the Lord, Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai. So this word again is compared. It has multiple similitudes. All right, and then here we got two examples. We got it said ice. All right, that's a solid. All right, then you got the liquid, which that's the water. The next one is going to be in Job. Could we get Job 36 and verse 27?
This is Job 36 and verse 27. It says, "For he maketh small the drops of water; they pour down rain according to the vapor thereof."
Right, and this is what Esau essentially calls evaporation. Because again, you had the solid. All right, when ice melts, it turns into a liquid. You see, but then what happens when it changes to another state? All right, it goes from a liquid, and then it go into a gas. Which is that water vapor, and this is what again he calls the evaporation cycle. But it goes to the operations of the Lord. The Lord allows for that water to essentially go back up into the clouds. That's why it says, "For he maketh small the drops of water; they pour down rain according to the vapor thereof." Could we get that in the NLT?
Job 3 and 27 in the NLT, it says, he draws up the water vapor and then distills it into rain.
You go to 28.
Okay, 28. The rain pours down from the clouds and everyone benefits.
Right. And again, that goes, that credit goes to the Lord. It says, verse 27, it says, he draws up the water vapor and then distills it into rain. The rain pours down from the clouds and everyone benefits. Hey, that's the third phase, or the third type of water, going back to those ridges, the solid, liquid, and the gas. All right. And water has multiple functions. When you actually break down the word for mayam, all right, ma goes into water. All right, and water is mighty. Could we go back to that? Could you get Psalms 93? Psalms 93. Yeah. So this is Psalms 93. Could you get it, KJV?
Oh yeah, Kanka.
Psalms 93 and verse 3, it says, "The floods have lifted up, O Lord. The floods have lifted up their voice. The floods lift up their waves. The Lord on high is mightier than the noise of many waters. Yeah, the mighty waves of the sea." All right, and ultimately, I want to get this precept is because water is mighty. All right, could you go back to the letter, Baba Kusha? The
so like
the chart, the chart.
Salakia. I thought you said ladder.
Blah. Yeah, call to walk. But right here, when we go to Mayam, all right, again, it should be a ma where the na is. It will be Mayam, all right, and it's water. All right, blood, your blood is, mostly water. All right, it says water. Water also represents baptism and the time of testing. All right, and then also written in there, it should be mighty, because water is also mighty. So when we break this word for water down, it will be mayam. All right, that ma goes into something that's mighty. All right, and things that are mighty, they're superior. So that yah is your hand. All right, and your hand represents your power. But then also your hand, you operate with your hands. You pick things up with your hands. So superior power in operating of cleansing. All right, so water has a superior power in operating of cleansing. All right, and let's get a precept just to go into that. Could we get Psalms chapter 119 and verse 9?
Mm-hmm. This is Psalms 119 and verse 9. It reads, Bath, it says, wherewithal shall a young man cleanse his way? By taking heed thereto according to thy word.
Mm-hmm. So it says, wherewithal shall a young man cleanse his way? All right, because again, going into water, mayam. All right, how would you cleanse your house? Because that word bayat goes into a house. So spiritually, we cleanse ourselves by essentially taking heed to the water. All right, and that water is essentially the word. That's why it says, wherewithal shall a young man cleanse his way? By taking heed thereto according to thy word. So that's the superior power. All right, and ultimately cleansing ourselves is subscribing to this wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of the scriptures. Could we also get Ephesians 5:26?
Mm-hmm. This is Ephesians 5 and verse 26. It says, that he might sanctify and cleanse it with the washing of water by the word.
Mm-hmm. So again, the water, the word is essentially what cleanses us. It's what drive and a quick little side note. A lot of times Esau will use he has something called like hydroelectric power. And that's because water essentially pushes things. It has the power to ultimately cleanse something. That has the power to ultimately get things going. That's why the scriptures say the words of the wise are as golds, because this essentially is what stimulates, the mental faculties in order for us to be a better person. Could we get Ecclesiastes 12 and 11, Baba Kushar? If you didn't have
Mm-hmm.
none. Okay.
Ecclesiastes 12 and verse 11, it says, the words of the wise are as golds, and as nails fastened by the masters of assemblies, which are given from one shepherd.
Right, going back to the point, the word is it has a multifaceted it's a multifaceted similitude. The word is likened to a fire. The word is likened to two-edged sword. The word is likened to water. All right, and the word is also likened to golds. The
Mm-hmm.
gold is what being that we're livestock. All right, ultimately we're being urged, we're being pushed, we're being driven, we're being stimulated. All right, by this truth. You know, but it says the words of the wise are as golds and as nails fastened by the masters of assemblies, which are given from one shepherd. All right, and it says as nails. What does a nail do? You take a nail or you hammer it, into a wall, with a picture or whatever. It's fastening that picture onto that wall. You see, so this word is also likened to a nail, which that means it keeps us fastened, it keeps us established, it keeps us rooted and stable. A nail provides stability, you know. But it
Mm-hmm.
says the words of the wise are as golds. Could we get that word for golds?
Okay.
Like you able to like pull it up in common definition?
Oh yeah, okay. This is just from Google. Google search. It says gold, provoke or annoy someone so as to stimulate some action or reaction,
Mm-hmm.
drive or urge an animal on with a goad. This is a spiked stick used for driving cattle.
Mm-hmm. What it say staff right there too.
Oh yeah, right here.
Yeah.
Yep.
Could you go to Merriam-Webster?
Con.
Kind of that's likened unto Psalms 23. Thy rod and thy staff they comfort me. Again another
Mm.
facet. It says to incite or arouse, as if with a goad. It says to drive an animal with a goad. It says something that urges or stimulates into action. So this word ultimately stimulates that action that was mentioned in Psalms 119 and 9. It said, wherewithal shall a young man cleanse his way? By taking heed thereto, according to thy word. So listening to that goal, listening to, what's going to push forth that action. That's ultimately how we cleanse our way. That's ultimately how we become a better person, that new creature in Yahweh Shai. So from that, let's get, let me see. Could you get Jeremiah 5:22?
Con.
Because we had
This is
mentioned, we pretty much mentioned, the 3 states of water. All right, and with liquid being one of those states.
mm-hmm. This is Jeremiah 5:22. It says, "Fear ye not me, saith the Lord Yahweh. Will ye not tremble at my presence, which I placed the sand for the bound of the sea by perpetual decree that it cannot pass it? And though the waves thereof toss themselves, yet can they not prevail. Though they roar, yet can they not pass over it."
Right, it says Jeremiah Yaramia 5:22. Fear ye not me, saith the Lord. Will ye not tremble at my presence, which have placed the sand for the bound of the sea by perpetual decree, talking about the shoreline, that it cannot pass it. And though the waves thereof toss themselves, because when you go into the actual creation of the sea, you got Yam. That's how you say sea in Bahalashwan Kwadash in the Holy Tongue. Yam, Yah goes into your hands, which means you work with your hands, and then Ma goes into water, so working water. So when you go to sea, that's why the waves is like, moving and tossing the ships back and forth. Pretty much going into how the waves toss themselves. But it says, yet can they not yet can they not prevail? Because when you go into the actual chart, water says mighty. Water is very powerful. It says, though they roar, yet can they not pass over it. And ultimately, I want to get this because in the creation of water, all right, again, you got the 3 states. You got a solid, you got a liquid, and you got a gas. All right, the liquid is, uh, um, it takes on the container or the shape of whatever it's in. All right, so if someone wants to go and spit on the sidewalk, the water isn't going to dissipate. It's going to stay in a specific shape. If it rains, that's why they have like the little rain things at the top of the house, so that it
Mm-hmm.
drips and it takes on the shape of that container. When you go to the sea, it's contained by the ocean. When you put it in a cup, it's gonna take the shape of that cup. That's because that's how the Lord made it. When it changes the state, when it goes into a vapor, hey, it evaporates and goes where the Lord wants it to go. When it goes into ice, it does what the Lord wants it to do there as well. But going back to the point, when liquid, all right, the one of the states of water is in a specific container, it's gonna take the shape of that specific container. That's just how the Lord, made it.
Mm-hmm.
So from that, could we get let's get First Peter chapter 3 and verse 20, and could you go back to the chart?
God.
And it says Mayam, all right, and again you got water, all right. Your blood is made up of mostly water. And it says water, but it says in parentheses, it says baptism, and then it says testing. So the number 40 is synonymous with testing. We've seen that in the 40 years, in the wilderness. All right, and I'm gonna get this too. Just going into that, this is Deuteronomy chapter 8, and we'll get verse 1. It says, "All the commandments which I command thee this day." Excuse me, all the commandments which I command thee this day shall ye observe to do, that ye may live and multiply and go in and possess the land which the Lord sware unto your fathers. And thou shalt remember all the way which the Lord thy power led thee these 40 years in the wilderness, to humble thee and to prove thee, to know what was in thine heart, whether thou wouldest keep his commandments or no. So that served as a time period of testing. I'm gonna get that word for prove. And it says nasa, and it says to test, to try, to prove. It says put to the proof or test. It says to attempt, to assay, to try. So essentially, that was a time period of testing, and that again, that word or that the number for water was 40. And again, that represents a time of testing. So could we also get 1 Peter 3 and verse 20?
Mm-hmm. If I may add to your point too,
Mm-hmm.
even when Yahushua was in the wilderness, 40 days, or he was fasting 40 days
Mm-hmm.
and 40 nights. you know what happened right after that? Then 40 days and 40 nights, he was tested. You know, a severe testing from Satan, which he ultimately passed. But you know, just adding to your point.
Water or the 40 goes into testing. You know,
Right.
baptism, testing, mighty, blood, water. You know,
Mm-hmm. You said First Peter 3:1,
20.
20. Kansalaki. First Peter 3:20. It says, which sometime were disobedient when once the long suffering of the Most High waited in the days of Noah, while the ark was a preparing, wherein few, that is, 8 souls, were saved by water.
And this goes into the story of Noah. You know, it was it says 8 souls. You know, because you had Noah, you had his 3 sons, Sham, Ham, Wayapap. All right, and they had their wives, and then Noah had his wife as well. All right, so it was 8 souls, but it says which sometime were disobedient when once the long suffering of the Most High waited in the days of Noah, while the ark was preparing, wherein few, that is 8 souls were saved by water. It says the like figure whereunto even baptism doeth also now save us, not the putting away of the filth of the flesh, but the answer of a good conscience toward the Most High by the resurrection of Yahweh Shai Hamashayach. Could we get that in NLT?
Mm-hmm.
Because that was a that was a picture of baptism. You know, that was a similitude. You know, the Lord speaks in similitudes, and them similitudes at times, it be foreshadowings. You know,
Con, con.
so it says NLT, 1 Peter 3:20 NLT. It says, "Those who disobeyed the Most High long ago, when the Most High waited patiently while Noah was building his boat, only 8 people were saved from drowning in that terrible flood." All right, and the rain was upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. You know, it says,
Mm-hmm.
and that water is a picture. All right, it's a similitude. You know, it's a foreshadowing, and that water is a picture of baptism, which now saves you, not by removing dirt from your body, but as a response to the Most High from a clean conscience. It is it is effective because of the resurrection of Yahweh Shai HaMashiach, and reason being is because that water is Yahweh Shai. It's a similitude of Yahweh Shai, because the true water, all right, that ultimately baptizes us, all right, because again it was a similitude for what's going on today. Essentially, Psalms 119:9. Wherewithal shall a young man cleanse his way, by taking heed thereto, according to thy word, and who is the express image of the word, Yahweh Shai. Could we get that? Psalms 40 and verse 7.
Mm-hmm. You know, and if I may add to your point,
Mm-hmm.
also, um, you know, when you read about Noah, you know, Noah, it talks about in the scriptures how Noah was the only one found righteous in all the planet Earth. So the Most High pretty much flooded everything. He destroyed everything and kept that one righteous, or pretty much the 8, right? Because they were all under him. So pretty much Noah and his household were saved because of Noah and him, you know, being righteous. But in the same manner, you know, you find how Yahweh Shai, you know, him being that water, like you mentioned, you know, he covers us. He washes our sins through his blood, you know.
Right, and we become a new creature. You don't see that with JC, or you don't see that with Islam. You don't see that anywhere else. But as it goes back to the point, I'm gonna get this real fast. This is second Esdras, the second Esdras chapter 2, and I'm gonna get verse 47. And it says I'm sorry for verse 46. It says, "Then said I unto the angel, what young person is this that crowneth them and giveth them palms in their hands? So he answered and said unto me, it is the Son of the Most High, whom they have confessed in the world. Then began I greatly to commend them that stood so stiffly for the name of the Lord, Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai." All right, and ultimately, so-called Christians are not being cleansed. They're not being cleansed in their mind. Ultimately, we see that cleansing are on the brothers. Those ultimately that are essentially in this truth. You see, because this truth ultimately cleanses that old man. Again,
Right.
pursuant to Psalms 119:9. That's what the Lord Yahweh Shai is ultimately who allows us, to stand stiffly. going back to Matthew, the 7th chapter, that rock, that solid foundation. And then also Ecclesiastes 12:11, it said the words of the wise are as golds, and the golds, that's what drive you, that's what urge you. It said as golds, as the nails that are fastened by the masters of assemblies, which are given from one shepherd. The nails, they fasten you, so ultimately we're able to stand stiffly and established and rooted are on that strong foundation, who is Yahweh Shai. And then also, on the same token, we become cleansed in that new creature in the Lord Yahweh Shai.
Con. You said Psalms 40:1?
7.
7? Con. Psalms 40 and verse 7, it says, Then said I, Lo, I come, in the volume of the book, it is written of me.
So again, because you pretty much mentioned the point, the Lord Yahweh Shai is the express image of the scriptures. He's the word. He's that water. He is AhlapBayath. The alphabet. That's essentially a similitude for the Lord Yahweh Shai. And just to get that, could we get I got two more.
Okay.
Could we get we get First Corinthians 11. And then we'll get Revelation. Let me see. Yeah, we get that first. But it says, 1 Corinthians 11 and verse 1, it says, Be ye followers of me, even as I also am of Hamashayach. Now I praise you, brethren, that ye remember me in all things, and keep the ordinances as I delivered them to you. But I will have you know that the head of every man is Hamashayach, and the head of the woman is the man, and the head of Hamashayach is the Most High. All right, and that's ultimately the order. The Lord said, let all things be done decently and in order. You see, but I wanted to get this point for the head. You see, because are you able to pull up how many bones we got in our head?
Yeah, I'll look it up.
So it says the human skull consists of 22 bones. It says these bones are divided into two groups, according to Esau science, but there are 22 bones are in the skull, pursuant to 1 Corinthians, the 11th chapter, so again, being that Yahweh Shai is the express image of the alphabet, you got it's 22 Hebrew alphabet, 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet, so he's our actual head, and then he's also our head, in the order and arrangement, so could we also get Revelation, let me see, Revelation 1, and where it says I am the beginning and the
the Alpha and Omega?
Yeah.
I think it should be Revelation 1.
Yeah, 1 and verse 8.
This is Revelation 1 and verse 8. It says, I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, saith the Lord God, or Lord Power. I am the one who is, who was, who always was, and who is still to come, the Almighty One.
KJV, Baba Kusha.
Oh, yeah, messed it up. I was wondering, I was like, what the hell? Different. This is Revelation 1 and 8. It says, I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the ending, saith the Lord, which is and which was, and which is to come, the Almighty.
All right. So again, applying this essentially to the alphabet, it applies to the alphabet as well. Ultimately, the Lord Yahweh Shai, each character, represents a different facet of the Lord Yahweh Shai. It goes into a specific prophecy. It has pretty much a meaning in the Lord Yahweh Shai. Each one of the characters is a image of the Lord. So just going back to that point. But did you have anything else, bro?
Khan, I had something.
Okay, you go ahead.
Khan, I wanted to get this because since we're mentioning how Yahweh Shai is that water, or really how even this truth, really Yahweh Shai is the truth, right? But just going to the point, Joel 2, because we talked about rain. This is Joel 2 and 23, it says, "Be glad then, ye children of Zion, and rejoice in the Lord Yahweh, your power. For he hath given you the former rain moderately, and he will cause to come down for you the rain, the former rain, and the latter rain in the first month." So this is really like a similar to going into this truth being poured on us right now, right? That rain being, of course, water, which water represents this truth, you know. But it says, "And the floor shall be full of wheat, and the fat shall overflow with wine and oil." What does wine represent? Also the truth. Oil, this truth, right? Pretty much just the Lord letting us know that He's going to fill us back up again. You know, bring us back to our former self. But just reading this latter part, 25, it says, "And I will restore to you the years that the locust had eaten, and the cankerworm, and the caterpillar, and the palmer worm, my great army which I sent among you." Right, because when you read it, we were, when you read, was it Ezekiel 37? We were those dry bones, right? But now that we got, that water back, now we're being refreshed again. That we're being brought back. Because when you go into, you can look it up. Let me look this up real quick. How water pretty much is essential for life. Here we go. So it said, I looked up, water is source of life, and it says, yes, water is essential for life. It is the foundation, not just physically, but also spiritually. The water being this truth. It says, yes, water is essential for life. It is the foundation for all known life on Earth, and plays a vital role in numerous biological and environmental processes. Without water, life as we know it would not exist. And that's what we see, Jake, 2/3, without this life, pretty much lifeless. They don't got the truth. They don't got the what it was required of them to pretty much escape this matrix that Esau has us in. Jake is still like, it's almost like when you picture a river that does like a lot of turns, and then eventually, as a matter of fact, let me look this up. Let me just ask this AI overview, because there's a river that does like a lot of turns, and eventually that turn gets cut off, and that water in that turn becomes stagnant, and that's pretty much Jake in a sense, right here. So I typed in, when a stream of water splits and deviates into a pit and becomes stagnant, it says it sounds like it could be describing the formation and subsequent isolation of an oxbow lake. So it says, bear with me. Let me just get the Wikipedia. It says an oxbow lake is a U-shaped lake or pool that forms when a wide meander of a river is cut off, creating a freestanding body of water. The word oxbow can be referred to a U-shaped bend in a river or stream. Whether or not it's cut off from the main stream, it takes its name from an oxbow, which is part of the harness for oxen to pull or plow or cart. But pretty much my point is, when you see this image right here, sometimes that water right here becomes cut off, and that's essentially Jake. Oh yeah, right here, look. This is the stage of that water. It ends up, that's the flow of water, and then it ends up, creating this pocket, and then it gets cut off. That's essentially Jake right here. See, but the Most High is allowing us to reconnect back to the main stream of water to give you life. But Jake is stuck here, man, stagnant. Right? But let me get this. Let me go back.
I got a preset for you, Marcan.
Con, you got it.
You was about to get something?
I just wanted to go back. But you go ahead. Get yours first.
I was going to, I'll read it. It's Judges, Shawapatium, chapter 15, and I give verse 16. Judges 15 and 16. It says, just laying back off your point. It says, and Samson said, with the jawbone of an ass, heaps upon heaps, with the jaw of an ass have I slain 1,000 men. And it came to pass, when he had made an end of speaking, that he cast away the jawbone out of his hand and called the place Ramath Lehi. And he was sore athirst and called on the Lord and said, Thou hast given this great deliverance into the hand of thy servant. And now shall I die for thirst and fall into the hand of the uncircumcised. But the Most High clave an hollow place that was in the jaw, and there came water thereout, and he had drunk his, and when he had drunk, his spirit came again, and he revived. Wherefore he called the name thereof En Hakor, which is in Lehi unto this day. All right, and ultimately the point I wanted to get was right here. It says, and when he had drunk, his spirit came again, and he revived. And that was talking about, actual water. You see, so how much more so, for this living water. That's why, the Lord Yahweh Shai had told that woman at the well, the those that, essentially get of this water, they won't thirst again, roughly paraphrasing. That's because, that this word ultimately revives us. It brings us back to life. I'm going to get this real fast. If you ain't have nothing, bro. This is John chapter 6 and verse 63. And it says, it is the spirit that quickeneth. This word quickens us. It says it because when you go back to that example of the water, our true water is supposed to revive us. The water that we get here doesn't revive us. All right, but more so, the water of the scriptures ultimately is what revives us. It's what brings us back to life. And then going into one of the words on the chart for water, it makes us mighty. But it says, John 6 and 63, it is the spirit that quickeneth, the flesh profiteth nothing, because we have mentioned the point that, the word has multiple similitudes. It's likened unto water. It's likened unto fire. It's likened unto nail. It's likened unto goads. It's multifaceted in the similitudes that the Lord used. But back from the top, John 6 and 63, it is the spirit that quickeneth, the flesh profiteth nothing. The words that I speak unto you, they are spirit and they are life. And it's the spirit that it's also again likened unto water, and that water is essentially what quickens us. It says the word for quicken, to produce alive, be bear living. It says to cause to live. It says make alive, give life by spiritual power, to arouse and invigorate. Going back to Ecclesiastes 12:11, it said the words of the wise are as goads. It's ultimately what stimulates us. It's what urges us to life. It says, I'm gonna read some more. It says, to restore to life, to give increase of life, thus of physical life, of the spirit quickening as respects the spirit endued with new and greater powers of life. It says metaphorically of seeds quickened into life, i.e. germinating, springing up, growing. It says to revitalize, because right now, Jake is in that gross darkness, 2/3 Jake in that gross darkness. They dull, they essentially, they can't see, they can't hear, the things that are ultimately going on the planet Earth. They're not spiritually alive, So again, ultimately coming into this truth, we're able to, be fastened, to be established, to be rooted, all right, to be that new creature and ultimately to thrive instead of, just surviving, because Jake just barely, Jake is barely making it.
Now Jake is thirsty out here. You know what I'm saying? That's the reason why Jake scriptures talk about how them having itching ears, like Jake is caught by every wind of doctrine. They go here, they go there, trying to find the truth, but they can't ever find it. Just showing you that Jake is thirsty, man. Jake is craving this truth. But at the end of the day, this is only given to a certain few. Scriptures talk about, I believe, I forgot the word, but it pretty much goes into only the initiated. Right, so there's only a few that the Most High is dealing with. Only those whom Yahweh Shai died on the cross for them. He only died for the elect at the end of the day, right? Lord willing, would be part of the elect, and this is the reason why He has us in this, or He showed this. He pretty much shined His light on us. You have anything else, Ark?
Let me see.
I want to read this real quick, if I may.
Yeah, you good.
This is the point I wanted to get right here, where it says stagnation. It says, cut off. I'm gonna read this real quick. Cut off. Talking about this river, right? It says, eventually the river might erode through the narrow neck of land between two bends, particularly during the flood. This creates a new, straighter channel for the main flow of the river. So pretty much a new river gets created, or a new pathway to the river gets created, and the previous pathway gets cut off. Then it says stagnation. Since the Oxbow Lake is no longer part of the main flowing river, its water becomes still or stagnant. Over time, these lakes may fill with sediment and vegetation, eventually becoming marshes or drying up entirely. And that's Jake, man. Through the spirit, that's Jake. 2/3 they're in that state of being dried, just straight dried the fuck up, man. Looks like no life is there. You pretty much tell Jake, you talk to Jake, and you can tell there's no life in him. They're still, in Jesus Christ, is still in all these other doctrines, that is leading them to a path of destruction. But as far as life is concerned, they have none. As far as this truth, because by you being alive means you gotta have this truth. You gotta have this water. What the scriptures say, they had hewn them out cisterns that could hold no water. That's pretty much Jake, man. Here it is. Jake is walking around with a barrel, supposedly supposed to have water in it, but really is empty as hell. Continues to fill it up and can't get and it can't get filled up because they're not going to Yahweh, as the brother mentioned. When he was at the well with that woman at the well, right? He talks about how he shall give water that's that no man shall ever thirst again. Right? So you got to come to the source at the end of the day. You got to come to the true watering hole. And may I get a quick precept, and then I'll pass it off to you?
There you got it.
This is Isaiah 55:1. It says, "Ho, everyone that thirsteth, come ye to the waters. And he that hath no money, come ye, buy and eat. Yea, come buy wine and milk without money and without price." And that's his truth. It is without price, man. It's given to you freely. Right? Our Lord Yahweh told us, told the apostles, which in turn, telling us as well, the prophets, freely ye have received, freely shall ye give. But verse 2, it says, "Wherefore do ye spend money for that which is not bread, and your labor for that which satisfieth not? Hearken diligently unto me, and eat ye that which is good, and let your soul delight itself in fatness." You see, and that's what we're telling Jake, man. All the shit that you go into these churches, go into these schools to learn the scriptures, they're not giving you the right food, man. They're not giving you nothing that's giving you nutrients, nothing that's satisfying. That's why Jake always turns back to the Hebrew Israelites, to the camps. Just showing you that we got this truth, man. We got the true water, right? Which of course is Yahweh Shah. But you got it, bro.
Con. And I'm gonna read this again. Isaiah 55:1. It says, "Ho, everyone that thirsteth, come ye to the waters, and he that hath no money, come ye buy and eat. Yeah, come buy wine and milk without money and without price." So ultimately, when you look at actual, resources and even actual water, all right, in the world, all right, Esau charges for water, but this truth is ultimately supposed to be something that it shouldn't have a price on it,
Right.
Essentially, again, going back to the point that those that are essentially thirsting, it should be free. It should essentially be given to them, without a price. It shouldn't be to where how some of these camps is charging, for breakdowns or essentially merchandising, this truth. It should be free.
Right. It's almost like, as I say in the world, it's my God-given right. You know what I'm saying? Water should be free.
Right.
Like it says, it's your God-given right to drink some water. The scriptures talk about how the Most High makes it rain on just and unjust alike.
Mm-hmm.
So just showing you, man, water should be free. Like this truth, should be free.
Yep.
You can't be charging for this truth, or charging even like you said, like Esau with water. Charging you by the gallon on your tap, or selling it in the damn grocery store in plastic GMO bottles.
Mm-hmm. And that's why the subtitle, it says the free offer of mercy. It should be free. But I'm gonna get one more, and that'll be it. If you ain't had nothing, bro.
Con.
This is Tahoyam, Psalms 1 and verse 1. It says, "Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law doeth he meditate day and night. And he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water." All right, and ultimately, a tree planted by rivers of water, them roots is essentially going to be moistened and vitalized. All right, by being connected to the source. All right, by being connected to that river. All right, that true water. It says, "And he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water." Hey, that tree gonna be prosperous. It's gonna be healthy too. It says that bringeth forth his fruit in his season. His leaf also shall not wither, and whatsoever he doeth shall prosper. And ultimately, in the kingdom, we're gonna be prosperous and bring forth fruit in the kingdom. You see, because essentially we abided in the Lord Yahweh Shai, who is the true living water, and he is the express image of the character Ma or Mayam. All right, which again Mayam is the word for water, Bahalashwan Kwadash. But yeah, that's pretty much all I had, bro. Vienna.
Nah, it's just how heavy. It's just heavy how the Most High has laid it out in the scriptures. It talks about a river. What's a river? Pretty much a river is a source of life. He talks about also, he's the vine. Yahushua, he's the vine. He's the branch. What does the branch or the vine feed to the rest of the plant? Nutrients. He's the source. Right. At the end of the day,
the door.
So showing you, you got to come back to Yahushua, man, to receive that life. That was it.
Like you were saying, Yahweh Shai, he's the source, he's that door, that pathway, that connection, he's our access and mediator. But yeah, that was pretty much all I had. Adawama Tazah, Zabanaya Paulo as well. That was a beautiful edification through the spirit. Well, Adawama Tazah, Adam Yashi Awam Tawab, Lord's will, you have a good day. Well, we can go ahead and close it up by saying, Call Halayim La, Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Wacham, Wadashwa, double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone that taught us his truth and rule well, and much respect to you bros out there pushing his truth with all righteousness and sincere. Shalom, shalom, shalom lakam.
Shalom.